So I see we've got also Henry and Susie and Meredith and Juliana. Welcome. So from our side for today's discussion, just to share as someone that's at Action Network and seen the growth of our new-ish, not really new-ish, I always say new, but the mobile messaging tool might be new to you, but as progressive change makers, we just noted that we have a strong need for multi-channel engagement through email and mobile messaging now, kind of more than ever. And this really allows you to do some innovative ways of engaging with your activists. And we'll learn more about that today in the whole process of switching platforms or acquiring a new tool here with us at Action Network. One of the quotes that struck me from the conversation that was stemming out, and also I'll share our blog with AFL documenting we're talking more about the migration itself, but mobile messaging is the same as writing an email in Action Network. It's all just very familiar to us. So we'll dig into more of kind of what that means here as we move through the conversation. But I did want to do intros so that we could talk about who are the experts, kind of talking about that, the migration with our partners at the AFL. So I am happy to lend the mic over to our main, I would say our person of the hour, Kyla Hysia. Am I saying that correctly, Kyla?
Yeah, it's Kyla. I don't know if I'm like the person of the hour. I feel like Jeff really helped me a lot. We had a lot of people. We'll get into that. But hi y'all, I'm Kyla Shah. I use she, her pronouns. I work at the AFL-CIO and I'm a senior digital strategist, but I think for this, I was just like the main cat herder is like what I basically thought of myself as.
Very cool. And not to be forgotten, you also have Jeff. If you want to do an intro, let folks know a little bit more about you.
Hey, I'm Jeff Mann. I'm a web developer on the data analytics infrastructure team at the AFL-CIO, and have been involved with Action Network for a long time now. And I'm a developer on our team, but I'm not a developer of Action Network. But I do, along with Mari, facilitate our affiliate working group that gets together and discusses the Action Network roadmap.
Thank you, Jeff. And we'll get more into details of all the things you've just described for folks that are kind of new to the idea of our partnership and how we partner to do collaborative building of the tool. So we'll talk about that unique and special relationship in more detail. And then also we have Mari. Mari, tell us about why are you here?
Hi, yes, I am Mari, and I work with the AFL-CIO, affiliates, DNC, and Daily Coast to build out our yearly roadmap, which includes a lot of big improvements to the mobile tool set. And I got to work with Jeff and Kyla and the whole AFL team throughout the migration to make it as smooth as possible. And I'm in DC now. I was in Minneapolis, but recently moved back to DC.
DC crew.
I'm also in DC. I forgot to mention that.
So I see we have a good group of folks that are joining today's conversation, listening in. I'm probably wanting to learn more about details of how the AFL, who's actually AFL-CIO, is a founding member of Action Network Development Partnership Program, which is a cooperative model for building technology. And we really lean in hard to the expertise of the practitioners of the toolset to make sure that it really meets the needs of the progressive movement. And that's a bit of a mouthful, but I mean, I think, if y'all would want to speak to kind of what does that relationship mean, what does it look like, and how did that kind of lead into acquiring the mobile messaging tool? Tell us more about the partnership program.
Sure, I can take that one. So our relationship with Action Network is definitely unique compared to almost all of the other platforms and tools that we use. And where it came from was back in, I think it was 2013, 2014. We had been using Salsa Labs. They got acquired by well, they were already for profit, but they got bought out. We were, not thrilled about that. And just in general, we're, looking for something new. We ended up partnering with Action Network, which had, a tool set already in place. The start of this tool set, but decide to partner together to see what we could build, and so through that partnership, where we are, where we ended up was with the great Action Network toolset that I'm sure most folks on this call use, but it's the really cool thing is the process for how we get there and how it keeps growing. So for most tools we have, if something's not working the way we want, or we have ideas for new features, like we can put a request in, and maybe they'll get to it, maybe they won't. With Action Network, it's actually a cooperative process to set the roadmap. So each year we create a roadmap of these are all the features that are going to get built this year. These are all the things that goals we have. These we have a long wish list of items that we pull from, that kind of keeps getting added to, and then we meet monthly with AFL-CIO affiliates to discuss our plans. The other PDC members also meet, and then kind of each year, each spring, we kind of go through a process to decide, okay, these are the features that are actually in the roadmap for this year, and then we adapt as needed, and we keep meeting to figure out what get into the details on it should work this way, or it could work this way, and what's gonna work best. And I will say, as far as the mobile features go, I think this is just like an example, good example of what's possible with this. I to be honest, when it was initially proposed, I was a little skeptical of can we really do these mobile features? It's going to be big, it's hard to do. Should we prioritize that? And it was our friends at Daily Coast that initially inspired this and actually funded the development of the initial version. And then as that came into place, then made it easier to see, okay, now we can see where this would go. And then through the roadmap process collaboratively, we shaped, we decided to shape this tool into something that could actually that we felt could take, we could migrate our whole mobile program onto. And so over the last year or so, been adding all the features that go above and beyond where we were previously.
For sure. So yeah, for the folks that are listening in, that is kind of key to how we develop our tools here. And I know I would be interested to know from Kyla's standpoint, with kind of strategy standpoint, what were the main reasons that you kind of how did you get enough kind of steam and momentum to go ahead and flip that switch and decide that, hey, we need to start this migration process? When did that happen, approximately, and kind of what was the antithesis of that?
Yeah, so we were basically just waiting, because we had pretty much all of our stuff was on Action Network, and we had been using another platform to basically do everything to do with phones. So that was our calling senators and sending out text messages. And Jeff basically, I don't know if we would describe it this way, it MacGyvered some code to get the systems to talk to each other. And it was working, but it was obviously just not ideal. And so I had just gotten to the AFL, and I was seeing people sort of struggling, being oh my God, I have to learn another platform. There's just so much going on. And so then as soon as Mari was yo, we're gonna get click to call and we're gonna get text messaging, we were oh my God, let's see if this can happen. And so we basically looked at it. And so I don't think that we necessarily had to do that big of a huge sell to people, because basically I could just be like, yo, it's one platform. You don't have to learn like an extra one. When someone like signs a petition off of an email that you like wrote, you can see that. And then, you know, you can like send them text messages after that, and it's all in one place. Like people were into that. And like the quote from the beginning, like I'm like, quote myself, like it was just very familiar to people. And so like, you know, that was just basically like the biggest selling point, just streamlining the process, having it be in one place. Now, I will say that that doesn't mean that we didn't have to communicate to them, because people needed hardcore communication. Like we talked to them a lot, and it wasn't about building up like momentum. It was definitely more about like just getting them prepared and understanding that this is going to happen, just because we have like folks in the field like across the country and like, you know, many different chapters. And so it's just like, I didn't hear about this. There are people who are saying that. So it wasn't building momentum, but more just like getting the word out.
Gotcha. And I can see how that could be a bit of a challenge, considering how large the AFL-CIO is in breadth, and all the folks and pieces and part that kind of touch. And I guess from a program standpoint, and I'll get more into the technology of what we offer, which I think is really special. It's not just mass text. There's other really cool and important things that you can do. But what is the importance of your mass text for program? What were you really kind of, you know, what impact does it have on the work that you do?
Yeah, so I think that we're seeing more and more that like people are like paying attention to text. Now I think there's a fine line to balance here, because I think people like also get, especially after like the 2020 election, get like kind of annoyed by text a lot of the time. But there's like more and more research is just like coming out that like text is effective and like it can get people to do. And so now I'm just like really excited, because it's like, I don't know about y'all, my email inbox is like a monster. And so it's like, I very easily miss things. And so the ability to be like, oh, hey, I saw that you like clicked on this like email, but didn't like actually take action, and like send like a quick little follow-up being like, hey, did you like want to do that? I think is really useful. And I will also say, in talking to our sort of like folks working in the field, what they also use it for is not necessarily just like mass text, but also like they have like, they're setting up groups for like their board or like some of their like delegates and people that they work with. Because before, I'm like almost certain they were just like, you know, like a group chat, like text thread, just like we do with like all of our friends. And I was like, no, I feel like y'all can like have like, you know, a tool that can like probably handle this better, versus like you gotta like find the thread each time and then like whoop, 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 and like select all the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just really gonna make the whole process easier, and then also be able to like bolster and support the rest of our program.
For sure. So yeah, and that was one of the big reasonings why I think, and I know Action Network launched the tool, was just to make it available to more organizations, not dependent upon size. Obviously, you are a big organization, so obviously we needed to get it right. And a big part of getting that right, I think, was working together with Mari, who is the product manager. So Mari, I'd love to learn more about. I know they launched and really needed to be able to do create a plan in order to start this migration. How did you work with AFL in order to do this plan? What did it look like? What was there, like a kickoff meeting? What's that process kind of? How does it start?
Yeah, so the AFL program, as they've kind of been alluding to, it's not just their centralized program. They work with, you know, in the system we called a network, and they have child groups, which are locals that also have access to the tool set and send out text messages. So it's like more than just them at the national level. It's a sprawling program, which I know, you know, other affiliated programs are likely very familiar with. So we do have a big, very detailed migration guide, and migration can be very scary. I think all the mobile migrations that I've seen over the last couple of years have just been much simpler than email migrations, especially if all of your data is centralized in Action Network. It's just kind of layering the new mobile data on top. So that's the first step, as we talked about, kind of like what data do you have outside of the system and what data do you really need in order to run a successful mobile program at the national level, and then for local councils as well. And we did have this kickoff call where we talked about the plan, the data, talking about how do we want to train locals, what's the onboarding process, who do we need to loop in, and then, thinking about where are the sources of new data and switching out forms. If you're using another tool set, making sure that the opt-ins are coming into Action Network, and then actually performing the migration. So, I think, Kyla, when we initially talked about this, it was kind of a stressful thing to talk about migrating. I think any migration is kind of stressful, but then it ended up being easier and less challenging than we anticipated, even for a program that was as big as yours. And part of that obviously was all of the planning and the great collaboration that your team had.
Okay, so then obviously you had to do the audit, you needed to get together, you needed to spread the word that this was happening. People seem to be relatively positive about it, because I think just from a project management standpoint, a good tool is a tool that people are going to want to use, and obviously they're going to have an element of training and understanding of that. So how did you go about, once you were able to kind of kick it off, how did you go about getting the word out and doing training? So you documented a lot of this, but then how did you help people understand how to use it?
Oh my God, yeah. So that was a challenge, and I want to make it clear. So migration can seem scary, and it was less scary than I actually thought. But I want to be clear that it was work. There's going to be a lot of work, and especially if you have if you're sort of just doing it for one organization, it'll be like a little bit easier. But when you're trying to bring everybody along, it's a lot of work. So I don't want to be like, oh my God, it was all rainbow and sunshine. It was work. And so one of our challenges was we didn't have extremely good infrastructure in reaching out to everybody. And so I think we migrated in August, and we gave them 6 months notice. We were like, hey, we are gonna migrate in 6 months. Just get ready. We will let you know what you have to do, but we're just letting you know. We inevitably were they're gonna kind of freak out, but nobody really did, thank God. And so then we would email them whenever something happened. And then once it sort of became much more real and we had a date on when we were gonna migrate, which I think was August 31st, then basically 1 to 2 months before we migrated, we sent out a note to everybody and said, hey, so if you are on Mobile Commons, which is our old platform, if you are on that, you are probably going to have to migrate. We are going to have trainings for you, and we will teach you how to do this, and we'll help you set this up. So we separated that group out. We did a further subgroup where it was the people who were power users, who were actually sending out a lot of messages. And we side chatted them, and we're like, no, but really, we are doing this. So please let us know if you want us to what you need from us, if you need this beyond training. And then we also anticipated that this migration was going to cause more people to be interested in texting. So then we had a third group of folks that we had to talk to basically get on board. And we were like, you're going to start from scratch. So we'll give you some best practices, but we're going to prioritize these other people. And so what happened was, I think Mari and I think we gave 2 trainings, maybe one 2 in 1 week, or 1 a week after the other, where basically Mari went over here is how you put your list into Action Network. This is what a welcome ladder is, showing how to basically set up the messages and stuff. So that's what she did. And I will say, this is a little bit more work on our end, but I ultimately think it was better. We decided to basically set up the keywords for everyone. And even though that was more work, we thought it would be better for us because we were all sharing a short code, and we would need to be able to coordinate between different groups because different groups can't use the same short code. And so we were like, we'll just set it up for you and then you can edit it after. So we took on certain parts onto ourselves so that ultimately it would make it easier for the people in the field, because goodness knows they're probably doing 8 other jobs. And so we're like, let's take that off of your plate and we'll put it onto our plate for better being able to coordinate that. But we basically had the trainings held specifically for the people who would have to migrate. And then we sort of were like, okay, you good? You good? A couple of people missed the deadline, but we managed to make it work. And then now sort of the phase that we're in is that people have heard about the migration. And so the people who were already doing texting for the most part already moved over. And now we're getting people who are like, so I kind of heard that texting exists. Can we like get into that? And so I basically adapted that training to focus less on like migrating data over and added in a new element to the training where it's basically like, here is what a short code is. No, you can't just text people that you have the numbers from. They have to get opt-in. So like basically like a best practices and introduction training. And so basically our training and rolling out plan was a lot to do with like segmentation of like the different groups that where you can tell like I'm segmenting the audience. But like basically we did that so that we could give them the sort of training needs that they needed. And I also think even loading some things up on your plate can ultimately have some payoff for you, even if it is some work. Was that the question? I forgot the question.
Yeah, no, that was just, I mean, that was basically getting folks, I mean, there's one thing to acquire a tool, there's another thing to actually let folks know, particularly for large organizations, that this thing exists and the benefits of it. So that definitely answers the question as far as, that it is work. In order to get the benefits. But speaking of that, kind of like the risk versus the benefit of the tool, I'd be interested to know from Jeff, from the kind of data standpoint and how you're keeping track of, let's see, old signups to your mobile list versus new signups. How did you go about that kind of data migration and kind of knowing what's what?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is to really like figure out what data you well, actually two things. So what data you need to keep, and then what data you actually need to keep in Action Network. So for example, so for like the, the opt-ins, everyone was opted in, we moved those records over to Action Network. But, and we knew we need to like keep records of like, when people opted in so that, if someone, files a complaint that, we shouldn't be texting them, whatever happens, we have a record, yes, you opted in, on this date at this time. But we realized like, that's not information we like actually need to have in Action Network. We're not going to use it for targeting or anything. There wasn't necessarily like a super easy way to like, to migrate that in. So we just, we exported all that information from Mobile Commons, and we're keeping that file, so we have it on hand on the off chance that somebody requests it or we need it for some reason. But we didn't try to bring in like every single data point because like they just weren't necessary. We decided we didn't need to know like who texted in about our convention 8 years ago. Like, who cares? And then there's some stuff where we did want to make sure we had that information, that someone, did a recent, click to call action like that could be relevant. So we, made sure we captured the stuff that we needed to, and the stuff we didn't, we for the most part, we have it, exported in a file. If we ever realize at some later date that we do need it, like it's there, but we didn't try to migrate every single data point in.
I see Mari nodding your head. Like, is that I mean, obviously it's important because that's what you kind of talked through and did, but I think we could get your kind of view on like the importance of that when you're thinking about migration.
No, yeah, no, I 100% agree with Jeff that it's really about like, what data do you actually need in order to target your mobile messages? And it's really easy to kind of expand your scope and feel like all data is important, and it's really hard to let go of data. But I thought, the AFL did a great job of prioritizing, and it makes your lives a lot easier in the migration process. It keeps your data cleaner in Action Network if you think about it that way.
Before I go on to the next slide, I definitely want on the syncing piece. I guess I'm interested to know more so of kind of how you utilize the forms as part of your migration. Talk about whatever, using tagging. I know Kyla already spoke to kind of using keywords, but how did you use Action Network forms for that migration as far as syncing that?
I think we tried to keep it simple on this one. And so we haven't put on a form sign up for the mobile list. I think we're still keeping it because like people are like used to like text work to 235-246. So I think we kept it on that And so I don't think we really used like any forms for Action Network to sync it up, but we definitely did make sure to like tell people like, hey, make sure you're checking every single thing that you have your numbers printed on, because that's going to change. I don't know if that's what you mean by forms, but it's like, I don't know, here in the labor movement, sometimes we like paper more than machines. And
Right.
so like we definitely were using, like, we definitely told folks, like, you're going to need to check your printed materials and make sure you are fixing all of that. So we definitely made sure that those synced up. But for now, we are mainly using like texting in the keywords as the main sign up, and not really like, and then also the opt-in for when you take actions, but that's about the only forms that we had to sync up.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And like the other thing we did was, we were, for our like collective call forms. So like Gala mentioned, we had it, we had some script like rigged up with our wrapper before to like to use like Action Network forms to then trigger mobile comments, click to call, and it was all a little cumbersome and clunky because it was not really designed to do that. But so then it was just kind of a matter of then just like creating actual now that there's the Action Network call campaign feature, all we had to do was just create call campaigns for those instead of those click to call forms.
Boom.
We literally had to like go in and like go into the wrapper, fuss around with the CSS, and then like put things in using like HTML. It was like not a good look. Another reason why we were like, yes, get this into Action Network.
So that's a good segue into talking about some of the other offerings of mobile messaging. So we strategically did not just call our tool, send a whole bunch of text at once, because it's a little bit more than that. So in mobile messaging, we also offer things like MMS, so you can send things like GIFs and kind of jazz up those texts, but you also can utilize things like call campaigns. In fact, call campaigns, I think, was the first tool, correct, out of the mobile messaging piece that was developed, Mari, is that correct?
Yeah, one of the first for sure. It was in the initial round of features in that first year.
Tell us more about what are call campaigns? What do they even have to do with mobile messaging? And then like from the AFL side, why was that so important to get going? So I guess I'll start with Mari. What are call campaigns?
Sure. So anybody who's used a letter campaign in Action Network, it's a really similar setup. It's actually now basically exactly the same, where we have preset targets, and you are connecting your activists to the target, and instead of sending a letter, they are leaving a voicemail. So that's the basic tool, and there are really interesting ways to use texting and call campaigns together, where you can text people a number and have them just click the number from the mobile message. You can do click to call, which AFL-CIO is a big fan of, but that's the general feature set. And it's really powerful, obviously, different than sending emails, making calls and leaving voicemails. For
sure. So for Kyla, so let us know more about kind of how this Call Your Senator campaign. This is obviously something that you set up for passing the For the People Act. What was the strategy behind that, and how did call campaigns come into use?
Oh my God, we are constantly telling people to call their senators. I will say this is like, it's not like a secret, but like this is actually the feature that we were waiting for before we're like, let's go. We were like, we need to make sure that we can have a call campaign, just because it's sort of the bread and butter of like the advocacy work that we do. And I like keep trying to like convince people to like not just call your senators, but it's like, y'all need to get the CEO's like cell phone and like start doing that. No one's taken me up on that yet, because it's like kind of aggro and it's like probably not something we should be doing, but like I secretly want us to do it. But yeah, no, so we have this done a lot, and as AFL and like with politicians who hate workers, we are often telling people like, hey, we have these laws that we want to pass, or like these things are happening, so like please call your senators. So that is especially useful, and it was really useful for that to sort of come in during this lovely pandemic that we are in, so like it happened sort of during a time where rallies were a little bit off the table, and like canvassing was also a little bit off the table. And so like, what kind of actions did people do from their home? A lot of it was sort of calling your senator. And so, so if this is for the People Act, honestly, we are we've used them like multiple times since we started. I think we probably used one like the week after. So like we have one right now around the freedom to vote, John Lewis voting rights legislation. We had a week of action around that where there was like trying to like basically, yeah, CWA, call the C-suite votes. I'm telling you, I'm just like an aggro gremlin. So like we should all do it. So we have that for voting rights legislation. We had that for basically trying to get the PRO Act passed. We had that for trying to get Build Back Better passed. Basically, like if ever we're trying to get something to do, one of the things that our field people and our C-level people want, they're like, we got to send calls out. And so, you know, having this be more streamlined and having it, if affiliates and stuff ever wanted it, that they could do it easily by themselves, that's also good because, you know, in all the different states, like they're also fighting their own battles. And so, you know, there's only 2 or 3 people on my team who can basically set up the old call forms, but like now that we don't really need to do that, that's also very helpful because their campaigns are also like, we got to call our state houses. And so that tool, it's literally just, it's just like it's a part of every campaign that we have basically.
Good. It looks like Jeff, did you want to?
Yeah, if a couple things I could add, I'd like to add here. So one is just, this is like a really important feature for us. I don't know about our numbers now, but historically, this has always been like our number one source of mobile acquisition is these click to call and 800 numbers. So like, this is like how we grow our list. And, it's a really great way to connect people to take action and then be able to get them, give them more actions to take. Another I think important point here that is the we're looking at the screen here is the click to call form, but there's also an 800 number that's associated with this, so someone can call in and take action. I think one of like the really cool new features that as far as I know may be unique to Action Network. It certainly doesn't exist in other tools, but usually when you call in, and if you're targeting a senator, it'll prompt you to put in your zip code and to connect you to the right senator, which works great at the federal level. But at the if you're targeting state legislatures, zip code is not necessarily precise enough to target you to the correct your state representative. So there's now a feature where it can actually prompt you to tell it your address. So to like and using speech to text, recognize the address and be able to route you to the right representative, which is really cool. If you're, and I think these call campaigns are even more effective at the local level, and like this makes that possible. And then one last thing I'd add on the migration piece of this is that just one of the things that we the migration overall went really smoothly. One thing we did forget was to make sure that we got all of our 800 numbers transferred over. So we at the last minute we realized we had an active call campaign on Mobile Commons with an 800 number that was being used, and then we had to get that phone number transferred over, and that these are like there's certain pieces of this where it involves Twilio, which is the vendor that provides the numbers, where it's just like out of our control and out of Action Network's control, and it took a few days to get a hold of the right person at Twilio and at Mobile Commons and to get that number transferred. So that was just a good thing to just keep in mind. Make sure you get all your short codes, all your phone numbers transferred.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I see Mari nodding her head, and thank you, Mari, for putting the link to the training in there. So our partners, if you are a partner with us and you're a paid partner, then you can you have access to the mobile messaging tool. I share that to say that there is a process of acquiring those numbers that would be part of your migration plan and planning that. So it's something to think about. And joining the training or a mobile demo will give you a little bit more insight on that. But with the time, I would love to know, with the migration, you kind of talked about issues with the numbers, and you also have acquired short codes. What was that process like with the migration? What are things that people should be aware of in their decision to acquire a new number or maintain an old short code? What does that process look like? and anyone can take it.
It depends on the number that you want, right? So the short code process is very involved. It's easier. The AFL-CIO was migrating their short code, which is an easier, shorter process generally. But just with any of these codes, there's just layers and layers of different companies and entities that are involved. So it's us, and it's Twilio, and it's the carriers, and it's the aggregator. So the short code process is definitely in depth. You know, we are becoming more experienced with that process, and so we have some lessons learned. We have a good relationship with Twilio, so I'd say they're getting less and less painful, but in general, you know, you can expect for that to take, could be like 6 months to get a new short code. Toll free, we have high volume toll free numbers. They're much easier to acquire, and you get really good throughput on those. It's kind of a question of like, you know, are you doing a lot of text to take action, text to join, where you really need that shorter code, or, you know, or not, right? And high volume toll free numbers are like 40 cents a month to rent versus a short code, which is, you know, 1,000 or a little less, depending on your plan. So we have lots of materials and support documentation on getting those numbers. You know, it involves like a privacy policy and having terms of service that are specific to short codes. Like they're really very specific about their mobile message. The opt-in text, like much more than on the email side, your opt-in text really has to be specific and has to link your terms of service and link your privacy policy. So we're happy to talk about that. And I see Devin asked about transferring specific VoIP numbers, and it was possible in the AFL-CIO's case. It kind of depends on where they're coming from. So, you know, that you can always email me, Devin, or email support, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, I will say the actual like Twilio tech side of getting the short codes and all of that, like I was probably crying to Mari about that like every day for a while. So that side was actually easy for me because Mari just handled it like a champ. What I think like you have to like build in, and like I think a lot of us at these orgs know this, is like having legal have to approve the privacy policy and the terms of service. Like we had to like ask our lawyers a couple of times to be like, okay, but like, this good? Is this good? Like, can we say that? And then they had their changes to like make sure we don't get sued or whatever. But like, so like that, I think is like something that we often don't think about. It's not just the actual like getting it from like one place to another, but also just like making sure that everything is up to snuff. So that was one thing. And Devin, I will also say, yes, you can transfer specific VoIP numbers. I wouldn't, if it's possible to avoid it, I would try to avoid it. Like you can do it, but it's like, you if you're migrating, you might have to rely on like the goodwill of the company to let you have it, which like our old platform, like they were great, like we liked them, you know, they let us do that, but yeah, it's not all of them. And you know, you basically have to ask this platform that you're like leaving to be like, and also like, can you let us have this number? And our people did, but they don't actually have to be like, yes. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, obviously like whoever's using it, you know, you basically have to weigh that up, right? Like, is it worth it, or should we just like get a new number?
Right. And obviously there's a upfront investment in getting this set up and working with partners to do that. But then, you know, the overall experience, I guess, in comparison to the process that you were doing before, you know, I would assume has been worth it, as far as, you know, I do the trainings for the 4R104 mobile. So I know at least when I'm setting it up and working with partners, you know, it looks just like email and it feels just like email. So from that setup process and training, what has been the feedback on kind of the use so far?
Well, I haven't been getting a ton of questions being like, what do you mean? What do you do this? And so I'm taking that as good news, because like literally like whenever I show people, I just tell them like, if you know how to set up an email, you know how to set up a mobile message. Like I just tell them that because I think that is true. And no one has, you know, basically come back and yelled at me being like, what are you talking about? That's like not what it's like. And so that's sort of the feedback that we're getting. You know, some of our like more power users are like quite happy that it's all in one place. You know, it was rough going through, you know, the transition, but the migration, but just basically having it all in one place. Like we haven't really heard anyone be like, this is the worst thing ever. And so I'm taking no news as good news.
Jeff is smiling. What did you have something else to share?
No, I think everything Kyla said is right on. I mean, like, it's say like no news is good news is definitely right. Like our users are definitely vocal about changes and like can be adverse to change, and when they're having trouble with something, they don't they're not shy about it. So the fact that we're not getting complaints is a really good sign. For sure.
So I would like to use kind of our remaining time, my remaining question here, and then I'll be monitoring the chat for any type of questions that are parked. But I've had this kind of thought on like, I love the mobile messaging tool. I don't really get to use it more than just kind of from our internal purposes to communicate with our partners. But I'm really interested in kind of like the innovative ways that partners are kind of imagining using the tool for program. I have this whole thought of just, being able to run a whole program purely via mobile, where you're getting people to take action via mobile, and that's the way that you communicate. So I'd be interested to know what are you guys like imagining on kind of new ways that you want to engage with members and new members with mobile?
So I think that for us as the sort of national, I will not gonna lie, when we were gonna migrate, we sort of like went a little quiet on text because we're like, let's make sure we get all of this in order before we move over. So I'm excited to like sort of like ramp that up to like get our text program more hopping again. I'll just be sending out those emojis like all the time. I will say that we've had interest from people in the field who are like, how can I use this for like organizers? And we have this campaign, and so like sort of they're like organizing core, like when they're trying to unionize a workplace, they're excited about using that. So yeah, our sort of like locals and stuff are definitely I think looking forward to using this to talk to rank and file members who are actually like on the ground unionizing. I'm also gonna tell my boss that CWA, y'all are calling cell phones. I'll be like, see, this is like totally me. And so like, yeah, I'm just really excited, one, that like we're actually going to be able to like use this, and it's gonna just like lower the barrier for people to actually be able to use it. Jeff, don't tell anyone that. It's like, I don't need to get fired today.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is, I'm not involved in our day-to-day mobile messaging program, but I think I think something that I'm really excited about with now that we've transitioned over to Action Network is the possibility for multi-channel engagement, to be able to send an email and then follow it up with a text saying, hey, did you see that email, and like create ladders like automation that include both email and text. And I think we're just starting to explore the possibilities there, but I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's probably one of a key differentiator, kind of brings us full circle, and knowing that we can do all this in one platform and do that truly integrated multi-channel approach without skipping a beat. So I think that's just kind of inherent to the platform, and something, taking a step back from actually working for Action Network and have as working as a digital organizer, I've not seen. I know, Jeff, you said you've not seen it. So in closing here, and I'm looking for questions that folks have, but just the migration guide, we have other resources as well. I know you probably have so many resources that you all have developed on your side. Does that resource kind of live somewhere for you all internally that you use, that you reference? What are your recommendations for people compiling resources to do the same thing you did?
Yeah, so I, at my past job, was a trainer. And so I got the feeling that y'all had a really helpful migration guide, but I was like, I think our people in the field are gonna need screenshot by screenshot, step-by-step instructions on how to do that. And so I do have a getting started mobile guide where it literally is like, I sat there one day and just took every single photo of each step to be like, this is literally the button that you click. And so I did that so that I send out to people. And then on top of that, I also have a basically like that's like the slideshow and how to and instructions, but I also have like a beginner guide where I literally break down for people, which I think might not be a mobile messaging guide, but maybe it is, where it's like literally this is what a short code is, this is what a long code is, and just like just going down to the very basics of what exactly is a text message, just because that I was sort of getting the feeling as I was here longer that some people need that level. And so we created that, and I would, like definitely like y'all are gonna have useful like messaging, but just for me, I was like, this is like what they're gonna need, so I'm gonna give that to them. And there's a question here: how big was our list when we moved it over? I think, Jeff, we were at like about 60 to 70,000 records.
That sounds in the ballpark.
As you can tell, I'm a data person. I don't know, 60 to 70,000, I think was right. We definitely, we did have one of our longtime consultants did go through, and I think he did some fiddling with we had a couple of different fields for like people entering mobile numbers because of like the MacGyver solution that we had. And so I think he went in and made sure all of those numbers were in the core mobile field. So he did have to do some of that. Jeff, did we also do a catalyst match at the time?
We did do a catalyst. Well, so there was a few pieces here. Like I think the hardest one was the actually just like cleaning up our phone numbers on the Action Network side to begin with. We've been using Action Network long enough that when we started, there was no core phone number field. So we had a number of different custom fields that had phone numbers in them. So trying to consolidate those into the core phone number field so that when we then migrate the data from Mobile Commons, the records from Mobile Commons would get linked up to the right record in Action Network. For the most, for a lot of our Mobile Commons records, we already had an email address in there, so those, another way to link them up. And then we did do a catalyst match to try to match some people where we only had like a phone number in Mobile Commons, and we didn't have enough other information to match them to an Action Network record. I don't think that step was critical. It may be caught like another like 5% or something. But also if they just come into Action Network as another phone only record, it's not the end of the world either. And then if they take further action, they can get merged. So we did a bit of data cleanup. It was mostly on the Action Network side, just to make sure we had our numbers lined up.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, the size of the list, I always some folks want to keep that, but we want to grow our list. That's one of the biggest reasons why people come to Action Network, I think. So that cleanup piece is important, and I'm so happy that we have mobile as a core field. That was a good point to bring up, so folks don't have to worry about creating a custom field for that. We already recognize those mobile numbers to be opted in. Any other questions as we wrap up? I'm looking at the chat. And if folks don't have questions, we're going to make this recording available for everyone that joined and was not able to join. You can share it. You can learn more about the program the tool, if you would like to acquire that for your program. I think we put the links in there. Yeah, it was join@actionnetwork.org to learn more. We also have the link in there for the 104 mobile training that we have every month, the last Thursday of the month, to learn more about how to set up mobile messages and share those call campaigns as well. I'm not seeing any other questions at this time, so I'm gonna give folks their 5 minutes back. Thank you, big thank you to our friends at AFL-CIO, both Kyla and Jeff. Keep up the great work that you're doing there. And Mari, thank you for sharing your expertise as well. All right, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.